everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, where is our show where we review things in the world of television. Most times now we are reviewing shows on an episode-by-episode basis, but sometimes we take some time extra, watch a show for its seasons itself, see how it does in a full performance scale. Like today, we are reviewing the entire first season of Perry Mason, the HBO version. Let me be clarified of that. Now, for us, it's been a little bit of time since I still remember it's almost been 5 years ago. Okay, maybe I'm over exaggerating. More than 4 years ago that I was here. It was my first year of doing this entire show of What's in the Tube, and we were reviewing Perry Mason. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Nowadays, I really pick out what shows I review on an episode-by-episode basis. So for me, like when I was selecting Perry Mason, like I said before, I mainly did it not for the right reasons. I will admit that my intentions were not fully clear for that review series. I think of all the review series I've done, which is now 15 going into 16 in February, I would say Perry Mason was the one I think I forced myself a little bit. And if you were to go back and watch those episode reviews, the first half at least, I felt a little bit forced. And I feel like even now, coming back to it after all these years, after all this time, to go back to it. Because again, 2020 was such a long time ago. We were in the middle of the pandemic. We were just, television was being restricted by what we can watch. Because again, there wasn't much stuff happening in the production side of things. Because again, we were all under quarantine. That was one of the shows that's been wrapped for so long already. And it just had to come out when it came out. And I picked it, and it took a bit of time. And I enjoyed it. I really, really did. And now, fast forward, again, all these years later, doing the rewatch, for me, my second time watching the season, first time I'm watching it in a full, consistent manner. I was supposed to release this review for context for Thanksgiving. I'm releasing this before Christmas. This is how slow the beginning was, where I wasn't feeling hooked into it. But when you hit episode 4, when you get to that point in the story, that's when, like, you really get invested. Because the characters are established, we know the story, and now the unfolding begins. And for me, I always love a good mystery. I love watching mystery story. I want to know exactly what happened, what's going on, and how do we get to it. And for me personally, again, like this being a show that I reviewed the second season, and I enjoyed it for what it is. It's not something that I had rewatched recently. So for me coming back, and in a way giving that fresh perspective, where like I was kind of surprised again. I was like, I forgot the real reveals, the twists and everything. And I think for me, that was a benefit. That was a plus, because I was able to kind of like, have my authentic reactions again, which is very rare. I mean, maybe like if I taken a break on a show for like a decade, maybe I'll be like, oh, wow. But sometimes like you tend to be surprised when you do these after so long, and that was for me for this one. And I think in the overall sense, I think it was still good. I don't quite think it's the best show I've ever watched ever. Sometimes I can't say it, but I feel this is a really good show. I think the cast and the story they were trying to tell, the humanity of it, the authenticity, them like really dialing down on the 30s setting in LA, and just telling this really, I wouldn't say gritty, I say more realistic, where a human being is even the people, like there is no good or bad. And I think this is like, and especially this is a legal drama to an extent, it's the moral gray area where like there are people who are doing this for selfish reasons, personal reasons, good or bad, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, everything is subjective. And I think if you go with that on this peace of mind, none of these characters are perfectly innocent. They're doing something bad on the side, but at the end of the day, for them, they believe they're doing the right thing, and they're making themselves go ahead on their own front. And I guess that kind of brings in the element of relatability, because I would say I'm a good person, but what does good mean is subjective. Doesn't mean, someone that is like me can say, oh no, you're a good person. Someone who thinks a different terminology can be, I'm a bad person. You never know. And when you really look into that context with this show specifically, I don't see most of these people as good people. They all have different motivations, different agendas, different everything. It's really hard to find an honest person that is feeling neutral and trying to help out anyone. It's really hard. It really, really is. And I feel like me now having that context of like, where does the story kind of go, kind of gives me that bigger appreciation. Now that I don't have to wait week to week, I didn't have to wait 2 months to figure out the whole story. I was just able to kind of like, have everything ready to go. It's a benefit, it's a plus. And I would not like to, before I get to the spoiler filled thoughts, I would say that I would be more welcoming to come back to the show down the road and probably still be the same way. To still be to be that, the person that, to be able to like be surprised with this with the show again. So with that being said, you can go watch the entirety of Perry Mason, the first season, the HBO version on HBO Max. Oh, well, Max now. I keep forgetting it's not HBO Max anymore. I still got that in the brain. If you want to, we are going to be jumping into the more spoiler-filled conversation. So again, one more time, I do recommend the show. I don't think it's a binge. I definitely think this is a slow burn that should take a couple weeks to enjoy, simmer the mystery a little bit. But I definitely don't call this a thing that you should dedicate your whole weekend to, or sometimes even your whole like one weekend. So that's just my opinion on it. So that being said, let's go into it. So last call and we go. Okay, so when it comes to the show itself, when it comes to the story, again, if the way I keep saying Perry Mason HBO is that there was an original series back in the 60s or 70s. I forgot what it was. I think Black and White was still around. But it was a serial. It was a TV show where it was just mainly a legal drama. None of this extra fluff. None of this like extra long form storytelling. And at the time, it served it as as dramas in this sort of medium has kind of improved and expanded over time. And with this reboot, again, I've had a history of like somehow covering reboots or revivals of ancient, of classic characters. I've done Walker. I'm doing Madlock right now. I obviously did Perry Mason. I've done so much already in this medium that I'm surprised of. Nancy Drew, I forgot about that. I'm just surprised of how much classic literacy characters in media come back nowadays, and how much I'm covering. It's just a coincidence by this point. Like by this point, I might as well just accept it. But when it comes to Perry Mason, similarly, I never had an experience with the originals. My dad did. My dad did when he was a kid, but for me, I never had that experience growing up. So for me, this was my mainline entry point to the world of Perry Mason, who is he's an attorney. He fights the battles. Wins legal cases, goes through all that ordeal. But in this case, they're expanding the story. They're like making it more fleshed out, making it more like grounded, making it focusing on the man before he became the lawyer. Kind of like their own version of a prequel. Like how did Perry Mason become a lawyer in this reality? Where we are in the 30s, it's post World War One. It's a very there's opportunities for the world to recover and grow following the First War. This is years before World War Two, and there creates opportunities of both the good caliber and the bad caliber. And that's kind of where our story kicks off here, where I think we're in 1932 going into 33 or 31 going into 32. I forgot what the time frame is. And this big murder of a young baby boy breaks the state. Because there's a lot of things that even I want to say even then, like nearly 100 years ago, would probably not bat an eye. But the fact that a baby boy was murdered and his eyes were sewed shut, that's gonna make headlines the world over. And that was the case here, where that occurred, and now we're at that point where, okay, so what happens next? Obviously, there's law and order, there's procedures that got to be followed, but it's not that simple. You have to really go really far to kill a baby. I think it was one of those things where like I think it's unanimous, like you should not touch it. It doesn't matter what reason, it doesn't matter, you shouldn't touch that way. Babies are supposed to be nurtured, they're supposed to be grow, they're supposed to be filled with love, with care. I don't care what your prerogative is. Babies are they're fresh into life. They need to be cultivated. They need to grow into be the best human beings they can be. It's to say in a very, very baseline terms. And then this happens. So obviously again, what the heck happened? What this is just can't just be a regular kidnapping go wrong. There's got to be more to this, and that's kind of where the story takes place, because like every single corner of the city kind of is watching on this, like, what is happening. You have the legal side ready to, like, okay, what's going on, who's going to get punished for that. You have the cops looking for the criminal. You have the regular civilians, your day-to-day people, the average Joes, no pun intended. You have so many different people looking in on this, just trying to figure out what the heck went wrong. What the heck? How did we get to this point? And that's where we kind of cut in on our main man. Our main man is Perry Mason, played by Matthew Rhys, who I think, in the general sense of his performance, I think he does a really good job. Again, I'm not comparing him to the classic actor because I don't know the classic actor. I don't know how he performed. Again, my only real interpretation of Perry Mason is this show. And I think for this iteration, I think he's doing the best he can with the material. And I don't mean like his performance. I just mean like he is performing Perry, who is trying to do the best he can, but he is a human being. He does have problems. He has limitations. He has a lot of things bearing on his mind. One being the fact that he is a struggling PI. He is trying to get work. He's trying to get paid. He's trying to survive in this economy. He is also a father, but he's also an ex-husband. He is estranged from his former family. He's also an alcoholic. He's a smoker. He's a lot of different things. He, again, when I don't know his age, but like I'm assuming he's in his 30s. Like when you're in your 30s, like you're literally, and you don't have like a set path already. You're kind of like lost in the wilderness because you're not young, so you don't get the fresh prospects of like being a new hire somewhere, but you're not old, so you can't be settled into a job yet. But he doesn't have that. He's just in the middle of things, and he's kind of in a way meandering through life, just doing the best he can, just getting to any opportunity, but just things aren't quite going his way, to be honest with you about that speak. And then he himself gets looped into the larger baby case. And from there, it's a slow realization to him that he needs to evolve. He needs to change. And this case will literally change his life as well as everyone surrounding it. Because, again, it's not an open shut case. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of mysteries. There's more mini mysteries in the bigger mysteries. There's corruption. And I feel like when you start adding layers and layers into this world, I think it gives you the more opportunity to be invested in the side stuff, where this is a fictional version of LA. Let's just cut it straight to the point. And, again, they're trying to be an accurate representation of how things were at the time period, as well as, dramatizing things for the purposes of the show. And I think in this case, you have all of those elements come into place here. And I think it tells a great story. It just, again, like I said before at the top, it takes a while for at least someone like me to get into, where there is no real big hook. There is no big, oh my God moment. It is very, like, these first three chapters, the first three episodes are mainly designed to kind of introduce you to the mystery, introduce you to the world, introduce you to these characters, all these pieces. Not just Perry Mason, you have his partner, semi-partner, hired gun, whatever you want to call it, in Strickland. You have his legal connection, which provides him with some work in EB, and his assistant / associate Della. Then you have the other legal side of it, who's trying to get through the case. And you have the primary, victims in this case, which is the Dawson family. And then you have obviously every little other character that kind of fits into place here. And there's a lot. Obviously, it sounds like I'm saying a lot of elements here, but honestly, it's really surprising of just like, we don't get that many scenes with every single person really, but like just how they're able to kind of create these unique storylines, that are ongoing at the same time as the main one, and they still find a way to intertwine and kind of keep things going. Because for me, like, something that always gets me riled up in a good way and a bad way is like when we see the bad guy, the bad guy, let's call it here, and they get away with something, and they kind of feel smug about it. They feel coy about it. Like, I got away with this, no one can prove it, and it's like I committed a sin and I got away scot-free. That's kind of like the best comparison that I can make to it. And that creates more tension. That creates more, like, as a viewer, an investment to really, like, how do we get to that point where we get to see justice, where we get to see this person get karma, what their just deserves to. And it does take a bit of time. It really does. So to go in order when it comes to the characters themselves, from bottom, I'm going to go in a different order because, again, there's not really much of a semblance cast here. Like, it is an ensemble. The show is called Perry Mason, but we have a lot of characters here that are, like, obviously assisting Perry telling this story. And I guess to start off to it, well, we have the primaries, the Dawson family, who are the parents that lost their child, who got murdered. I think that is the sign and the representation of a broken family, where you assume they get sympathy points, but they don't. The father is not as great as he assumes to be, and the mother becomes broken. Like the motion of seeing I forgot the Dawson's the husband's name. I apologize for forgetting it, but for him, his sympathy of like being like affected parents to then like segmented parents is just like shitty. But at the same time, what Emily did is also not the best. And again, that goes to the lines of like there is no good and bad. You assume because the husband is not immediately in support of the wife, that means the husband must be a bad person. But then when you find out what the wife did, it's like okay, they're both bad people. They don't deserve anything, and it just even gets even more saddening when like they're both stuck in the middle of this, and and you're not really sure like what is going on, what is the right story here that we need to know. What is it? So for me, when it comes to that, I think personally speaking, Emily got really the short end of the stick. I don't think she's innocent whatsoever. I think the I say this much, everyone, and I take my words for what it may be. Communication's key. Talk to your partner. Talk to the people around you. The longer you don't talk, the worse it's going to be. And in their case with this family, again, they're trying to do their best for their child, but again, they're both human beings. The father's not great with money. He does really bad plays, really bad investments, bad strategies with his own financial accounts. And then you have the wife who, again, probably was a caring wife in the beginning, trying to be the best possible partner for her husband. Then the situation changes. She's kind of pushed into a scenario, and she cheats on him. And again, I'll say this, but cheating is wrong. If you are even thinking about having thoughts of another person that is not your partner, have that discussion with them. Don't hurt them. Because it really does suck where, like, again, the fact that they discovered letters of Emily and her lover conversing with each other, the fact that they went to a hotel, they had sex, and they left the baby in the other room. Like, I have no sympathy point. I don't even care. I really don't. I'm sorry. But, like, and again, like I said, all of this is subjective. If you think that's fine, okay, fine. If you think that's bad, okay, that's your decision on the matter. For me, I don't condone cheating. I really, really don't. No matter how bad the situation is, break it off before you do anything else, because at the end of the day, you doing that does not make you better than your partner. It just makes you equally as shitty. Especially just how the things are. And then again, your public opinion shouldn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's your opinion that matters. But in this sort of thing, like, you always got to be careful, considering the fact public opinion can also have the negative effect on you, especially when you're in the middle of being charged with murder or conspiracy to murder and this reaction. I just feel for Emily, despite the action she does, and like, everything, she loses her husband, she loses her biological son. There's just so many things that basically destroy a person. That's not even counting the prison abuse. That's not counting the displacement of home. Like, there's just so many things that, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, just the avenue of just you had a life, and in the span of a month, it's over. You went from being in a house with your husband and your son to the next month you are literally traveling on the road with a person claiming to be your son, and just being like kind of a sideshow. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. I really, really don't know. I hope to God I never have that experience. Like, I know displacement's going to happen to me at some point, because again, like, as I grow up, I'm going to have new life situations, new life ordership, and that will kind of count as displacement, as there's transitional points in my life, but never to that extent. Never really, like, this is awful. This just really, really is. And just the you went from having family and function as your support system to now a random person using you as like credentials. Is just it's just awful. It's just really awful. And then kind of to like use that opportunity to segue to the religious side of things. We have a whole subline, not subplot, but like just a connective tissue where you have this, again, like I said before, the 20s were really shitty with the World War. 30s were filled with opportunity. Everything could happen. Anything could happen. And one thing was the freedom of religion, where like religion was morally expressful. People could talk about it more. It was more open to explain what your perspective is, what's your point on it. And in this particular line, we have Sister Alice, who she does not have quite the best mother. Her mother's more of the fiscal benefiter, especially with her daughter. Especially when it came to these preachers, to these people that claim to be the beacons, the embodiment of the God they believe in. But before context reasons, I am Catholic. I'm just letting you know that, just for context reasons. And with them doing that and preaching like that, okay, I have nothing to do. I have no problem with that. That's not what I'm trying to say. Is that, but they're trying to like literally become like, oh, I am basically God. I am like the closest thing you'll ever get to it. Like I am so connected with it, especially once you get to the moments of miracles where like there was an individual in a wheelchair that suddenly could walk during one of her sermons, and then the prospect that she was able to resurrect the baby and stuff like that. And it could just be the gaslighting in effect, where she's grown up like that to be this very spiritual leader, the spiritual embodiment of God, and was always her purpose, always her thing. And then when you start getting deeper into the season, like we don't spend a considerable amount of time with Sister Alice, like as a full like storyline, 100%. Like she gets a storyline, but like not to like a big extent of the primary storylines. You see her past, and it's what I said before. What about the baby Dawson is that your children are not items. They're not meant to be for whatever purpose you have for them. The primary reason you're having kids is to to showcase your love, to have these human beings being created out of the product of love and growing them to be even better than you. I think that's my opinion on it. And the fact that when we get to the scene in the show where the mom basically tells her daughter, like, you are basically a blowjob machine. You will, if we're ever in peril and we have no money, and most times than not, they just want you for some advantage, you need to perform it. And, that's what we need to do to get ahead in life. And it just sucks. It really, really does. And sadly, her mother is the one storyline that does not get justice. And she just kind of gets away with it all. And at the consequence of her daughter, who just, doesn't necessarily have PTSD to an extent from all that experience, but like, it's just burned into her mind. It's like, this is normal. This is how things are. But it's not. And I feel sorry for that she didn't have to go through that, like all this experiences then and now. And then it's an identity crisis towards the end of it, where like she just doesn't know what to do. She definitely lost faith in whatever she was doing, but at the end of the day, what does she have left? What can she do now? There wasn't really anything until the very end, when she decided to just live her life, trying to survive the best she could, trying to find her own identity. And it goes back to what I said about, when you are part of someone's life, whether you created, whether you're involved from the beginning, or you're joining someone's life, you should never try to cause negativity. You should always try to positively benefit them at some point. And the fact that she had to, get away from her mother, get away from everything, the entire structure she has of life, again, like, she's going to grow, hopefully, as a much more stronger person with a new sense of identity. But the way it had to get there, it didn't have to be. It could have just been literally any other thing, any other matter of things. To be honest with you, like, just, things can be different. And I think that segues then to the next major character, which is Officer Drake, who, again, in the 30s, things were very much different. It was a very different time. This was at the time of segregation, where, whites and colors were never allowed to really commingle, never really allowed to occupy the same space as it is now. And him being in this premise where, he is an officer of the law, but he's not really treated fully as respectful. He did work his way up. He did work his way to get where he is now, to get into this position, but he's not fully. He knows how corrupt the system is, and I think that's the sad thing of it, where what you're doing should be correct, but it's not because of you, but because the the situation you're in is just not proper. Where like no one really supports you. There's corrupt cops day and night getting bribed by politicians, getting bribed by lawyers, getting bribed by everyone. It doesn't matter. And all he is just a regular beat cop. And that's all he can do. And he understands his place because he knows at the end of the day there are bigger important things. Like he has a baby on the way. He needs to pay his mortgage. He has like, you know, already like a set flow of things to do. He knows he cannot mess this up. No matter how morally right he knows things are, he knows what the right thing should be. Well, again, in his perspective, and the fact he can't do anything about it because again, there's a bigger picture. There's a larger like a larger field to play, you know, because again, at the end of the day, for this entire show, everyone's in it for themselves. They have their own benefits. They have their own criteria. They have their own, like, you know, their own accomplishments, their own wants to achieve, regardless of what the other person is. I learned this last year for my sake. This is what I learned. I'm not applying this to anyone else. That the person behind you and the person ahead of you shouldn't matter to you. It does not matter whatever they do in front of you that affects you. It is what it is. But the reverse is true. Wherever I do not care about the person behind me. I focus on myself and the people next to me. Not back, not forward. That's how it is. That's how I live life. It sucks, I know, that, like I said before, we should all be positive to other human beings, which I am still, but I'm not going to go out of my way to make sure that the person behind me is also accommodated if I don't know them. That's just not how I am anymore. And that's kind of how he is, you know, to a regard where he is understanding the, like, of the situation he's in and just the limitations he has. Even when he does get involved with Perry, he even tries to, like, kind of put him in his place, trying to let him know, like, you cannot change anything. There is literally... This is the structure that it is. You cannot just come in here and expect that people are going to roll over backwards for you to get what you want. That's not how it works. And you get to see him, like, you know, like, kind of like, same with Perry and the others, where, like, this case, you know, especially now that, you know, like, now from the outside forces to the inside forces, like, seeing this case affect them, just realizing the fact, like, again, he's a father-to-be, just to be somehow involved in this, especially in a crucial part where, like, sadly, he had to falsify some things because, again, his superiors need him to, like, kind of stay in line, bend over backwards, kind of fulfill whatever the larger criteria is and call it a day. And in his case, it does suck that, you know, he's in the middle of this, you know, as a father-to-be, and, you know, he has to basically hurt a mother because of the larger agenda, because there's a lot of people that they don't think about Emily's well-being. They're mostly thinking about especially when we get to the lawyer side of thing, where, like, the prosecutor is more focused on this big win to get him, like, the clinch he needs to successfully launch his mayoral campaign. Or you have the actual people that committed the crime who's just trying to get away with it scot-free so they can move on with their day-to-day businesses. You have the father who just wants us to, you know, slide under the rug, kind of get, you know, kind of get away from this, kind of like be able to, like, move forward with his own new beginning. Like, there's a lot of people out there that's just focusing on themselves, and then you have Drake, who, like, again, he's doing what he has to do for his family, but he does feel sympathy for Emily. And towards the end, when he finally breaks and cracks and tells Perry, "I'm going to help you somehow, some way. I'm going to help you because what they're doing to her is not right, and I'm done." Like, he stands up to the man and says, "I'm not taking this anymore." He drops that badge with sounds like, "I ain't doing it. I'm done. I'm going to do things my own way, regardless of what happens." And I think I give him more respect for that because of that. And also, I have respect for the actor because I've seen him in Gotham for 5 years before this show premiered. So he's done some good work. He's done some good work on television already. And I look forward to whenever I get to see him again on that front. And then moving on to the legal side of things, when we get to the more, the actual, like, prospectory of the legal side. Obviously, you have the prosecutor's side. I sadly do forget the prosecutor's, like, you know, name, but I do remember his actor's name, Stephen Root. He's played a variety of characters on both film, TV, and animation. I know him best as Bill Daltrey from King of the Hill. This guy's such an asshole. Like, he is such a, pardon my French, a fucking asshole. Like, you know what he's doing is wrong, but you just want to punch him. You just want to, like, put him in his place. Like, but he's got power. He's like, political power can really, really affect a human being. It can really, like, put them on, like, on a pedestal that of that untouchable nature. Like no matter what anyone can do, I'm still the winner. I'm still gonna win. And for him, it's like he's just that. He's just the embodiment of just everything I said before. Like he knows what he's doing, but at the end of the day, this is all stepping stones for his future success. But I do love it when Perry literally like throws some 180s some 90-degree attacks on him, and he just sits there and takes it because he knows like fuck, he pulled at me, and I can't respond because I pulled one on him, and it's sometimes he gets his way, but most times he doesn't. And it's once you get towards more of the end of the season where like he is really taking some L's, like we sadly never get like an outburst moment of him where like he's losing, but I could definitely feel in his heart he was close to having one. He was really, really close. But then going on like on the real legal team, the real side of thing, we have EB and Della. EB, played by the very lovely John Leguizamo, is I really do like him. He's a very soft spoken individual, and you know you definitely feel for him from the start. Where like you know it's I like to describe his character as the don't judge a book by its cover, but in a different way. Where like you look at him, you think he's a lawyer, you think he's successful. You see his house, you see his like his nice tiny firm. It may not be the biggest firm, but it's still tidy. And then slowly, surely, you start to see, yeah, he's just a human being like everyone else. He just doesn't have things together. He's in a humongous amount of financial debt. He is trying to get this win on this case, but he's struggling because, again, he has limited resources. He has not so credible, respectable past life as an attorney. And definitely by the time we get to this storyline, everything's kind of coming to a heat for him where like he needs this case, the Dawson case, to be a win for him, to kind of like rejuvenate his law firm. And sadly, things don't go as planned, considering the fact that Perry and his associate Strickland kind of does their own thing, their own real thing. And, you know, it's not always the most legalist way to get evidence. And he's just trying to figure out how to put the pieces together when like the pieces are not naturally attainable. That makes it more difficult to admit into court. And then you have the financial component of things where like he is feeling the vacuum kind of rising where like this is all he has. This is all he has. Like this entire profession, this is everything he has left. He has nothing else left. He has this firm, he has Della, he has his house who has 3 freaking mortgages on it, like, which I'm like, why would you do that? Like, okay, I don't even know how fiscal financials were back in the day, but I'm like, I don't know how much money we're getting on those 2 other mortgages, but those were not smart. Those were not the smartest move in your tank. I'm just being honest with you there. But he does demonstrate the middle where he is a great mentor to Perry. They've had a relationship since he was a kid when he was in business with his parents, and him kind of being like not really like a guardian. I won't even say that. I don't think they have a parental relationship at all, but there definitely is like that mutual respect kind of that they have for each other. They know each other. They kind of understand each other. They may not always be there for each other, but they definitely are, you know, kind of within each other's orbits, if that makes sense. And then you get to the opposite end where like, yeah, EB's not so shiny after all, especially when we get to see where Stephen Root's character kind of calls him out. I'm like, I have all these incidences where you were embezzling money, you were taking extra money off the side of your clients, you were not thinking of their best interests, and he got scared because again, you know, there's no justifiable way for your actions. Someone I think said it best: you get what you get. The punishment fits the crime. It is what it is. Whatever you do has a causality, it has an effect. And sadly, him taking the short way out by suicide, I mean, that was the turn for me where the show kind of went to the next level. It kind of got me invested because, again, you have this, I think, one of the most stablest, as of current, individuals in the show, and you kill him. What does that do? It's like, I've used this as an analogy. I don't think it's like exactly a one-to-one with when Dumbledore. Actually, spoilers for Harry Potter. If you haven't watched Harry Potter, spoilers starts down when Dumbledore died in Half-Blood Prince. There was an empty hole in in his army and his side against Voldemort. You felt that presence. That the person who you felt like was going to win and protect you is gone. What happens next? And that's kind of how it feels. Where they're all kind of like not like headless chickens, but like what do they do? Again, they just lost EB, so you have Perry conducting this investigation with no lawyer to present this evidence. You have Della, who is alone, who has no real support system in the legal community because they know this case is a suicide mission, and EB only took it for the slim chance he might win and use this to justify a relaunch of his career. And then you have Emily, who like when EB leaves, the next lawyer that takes his place briefly doesn't give a shit about her. He's literally in cahoots with the other side, who is very well willing to basically screw over his client to benefit the larger picture here. Like, again, what do you do? Well, like, who's going to step up and be like kind of like that new stable EB figure? Someone's got to be, because otherwise everything goes to turmoil in this case. But like just the effects of his death is just felt for everyone. Like, they just know like how much, despite his faults, because again, everyone has fault. Everyone's guilty of something in their life. Let's just be realistic there. It is something that is what it is, and it creates that ripple effect that I think gives the second half of the series the investment people need to really hook them in. Because like I was always ready to, like, after that episode, I was like, okay, so what happens next? Like, what do they do now? How do they figure this out? And that kind of kickstarts to Perry's real next stage of his life, which we'll get to in a moment. But it really does showcase just how much things can fall apart without your support system. And then going to Della, who, again, like similar to Perry, where like she has that kindership relationship with EB for the many years working together, and always her dreams to strive to be a lawyer herself and to be able to take her career to the next level, especially again like being in the 30s where like a lot of opportunities didn't exist for a lot of people. So her trying to be a lawyer would definitely be like a trailblazer, to say the least, for her in her profession. But then again, like I said before, when EB dies, it kind of really, it makes her think like how lonely she is in life. Not in a bad way. She still has her girlfriend and the house she stays at, but like other than that, she doesn't really have that much. Because when you have that one constant like protection with in EB and he's gone, like no one's there to replace him. No one's really ready to be the next person because, like I said before, everyone's out for themselves and their best interest. Not your best interest, their best interest. So it kind of makes her feel more isolated, more lonely. And then especially when she has kind of no choice but to team up with Perry towards the end and like realize like, oh crap, we got really nothing else left in the can. I have no choice but to depend on you. I mean, it paid off, thankfully, but like for her, she's like, okay, bro, this can go south at any freaking moment. And that doesn't matter. But at least I think from every character in the show, I think Della does have the most, I want to say, good elements into her. She definitely cares more about Emily. She cared about EB's well-beings. Yeah, even Perry's to an extent. I think for her, like, she definitely is, like, I think the most level-headed person in the entire show. Even better than Perry. And he's the main title character, so that says a lot right there. But definitely credit is due to her being like the anchor that a lot of these people definitely do need to kind of keep things going on their fronts, on their personal developments as well. That leads into our investigators. So first off, Strickland, who I want to say I saw him in Joker first, the first movie, not the sequel. I was one of Gotham City's detectives, and my camera just went off, so I do apologize as we switch only back to vocals only. But I want to say the end of that front, when it comes to the case for Strickland, I always feel like he's the best friend, the disappointed best friend. We're like, he's always there for Perry. He needs Perry as much as Perry needs him, but Perry kind of takes more advantage of him than not. Kind of, sidelighting him a little bit more so than not, especially when it comes to the money front. If you imagine like the story, EB hires Perry, Perry hires Strickland. Strickland's not being hired by EB. It's kind of like, the weird connections you have there. And I always feel like Strickland always gets the short end of the stick, even though I think for all of them, he's the more threatening one of the four in terms of like the original group defending Emily. I that's what I believe, and as it progressed more and more, and it kind of dawns on him like just how much he kind of gets taken for granted. You know, Perry doesn't really like Perry doesn't make he does need him, but not in the way of like Perry actually saying to him like, you know, he really values him really, because like they have more fights than not, especially when it comes to money and like, you know, payment structures. Where how many times did Perry promise Strickland a payday, and that payday is either minimized or doesn't come. It happens too often. It's not a source of dependability, which I guess it also comes to the point, never do business with your friends, never try to like, you know, to do that, because it could get messy pretty fast. And I guess it's again a very slow burn for him, like realizing slowly that okay, maybe I should finally learn that lesson of, you know, look out for myself, and that's it. Because again, Perry's not going to do it. At the end of the day, he's going to have to make these very hard choices that doesn't really benefit him, and the return investment doesn't really justify the means and the needs of what he needs, and it it kind of makes him grow for like all intents and purposes. I do believe Strickland is the most serious character on the show, and it just sucks that he's the one that like has to learn that lesson about like, you know, friendship doesn't really account to much when it comes to business and, you know, the finances of things. And by the end of it, he's just like focusing finally on himself. Like for me, I'm like, that's right, just you, team Strickland in this case. It's funny to say that, and it could have been learned a different way, because again, he does vibe well off Perry, but the fact that it does have to be the matter for him to learn that to learn that lesson is just, it does suck. It really does suck. And then finally to the main lead, Perry Mason. He is such a he has his life in shits. I'm just being honest. I apologize for my language this episode review. He just doesn't get a break. In the beginning, he's trying to get pictures of a up-and-coming actor doing something illicit, just in case the movie studio has to get like any controversial things out of the way now. And as soon as he thinks he has a golden goose, like a really big ticket to the payday, and he gets beaten up, the film gets erased, and he barely gets $100 out of it. It's just, damn. I just feel really bad for him. He just cannot catch a break. Like I said before, he's estranged from his son and his ex-wife. He never sees them. He's so behind on child support. His family home is about to go into foreclosure. There's just nothing at all going right for Perry. Absolutely nothing. He lacks structure. He just doesn't know what to do. He kind of had a semblance of what his life could be, and then as things progress forward, it just doesn't go into that same direction as he was thinking. Especially, like, you know, at the end of the day, life for him doesn't feel stable. Like, it doesn't even feel like it's threatening at the end of the day, where, like, you know, he doesn't have a stable source of income. He's about to lose his house. At the same time, the person who's trying to buy his house is also fucking him. So I'm like, what kind of relationship is that? Like, it's sort of weird. It's like kind of like, you know, needed for needed sake, but it doesn't really correlate very well. I don't really know what's going on. I really don't know. It's just so weird by the end of it. But when the case really begins with the baby, I think Perry being a dad of himself, he feels differently about it. He feels more connected to it, because maybe in a way, I don't think he ever addresses this in the show, but for him, like, this could have been his son. This could have been his baby boy in the middle of this. And the fact that no one should go for what he did. No one should. And the fact that he slowly realizes what's going on between the church's corruption, the corruption of the cop, how the murderers were, you know, killed. There's so many things is going wrong that he finds out. But again, like I said, there's a difference between finding something out and proving it in a legal court of law. There are two completely different things. And in this case, it really does suck for him. And it gives him, I think, the exposure he needs. So when he is on the other side, he has more of a gratification, more of a understanding of it all. That in the first half, he's mainly harassing EB for like not taking him seriously, for not putting in all the evidence he finds to put into trial, because he doesn't understand it. But then when he is on the other end of it, he's like, okay, I see how it is. I really see how it is. And I feel like there is a clear line between the Perry we knew in the first half to the second half. I definitely think there is a bit of a jump between that, especially as he grows a bit more, because he has to be able to accomplish the task at hand, to be able to pull off this impossible feat of trying to get Emily not go to jail. And honestly, for his first case, I think he does tremendously well. You know, he just, it is rough. It's not perfect. It's a lot of like I do, but he definitely uses his PI and his brashfulness for his advantage, and it definitely does give him the edge over his competitors. And yeah, he turns a few heads that really kind of just want to kill him. And I think you're doing your job well, but people want to kill you because they feel threatened by you. I think that's a really good sign of it. And again, kudos to Matthew Reeves for playing the character pretty well for what it is. And I think he just has a really good performance. You know, it's believable, it's understandable. You can connect to the character because again, like who isn't going through tough times? Who isn't got something bad going on? Who that something's not going fairly as it should be? Everyone is. And I feel like that makes him a relatable character throughout, and someone to champion behind, to support, to cheer for him to win, whether it is the big course cases or just the minor victories across the road. That's just the type of character he created. But for me personally, at the very end of it, this with all that being said, I enjoyed Perry Mason for what it is when it comes to the show. I definitely do believe there could have been more of an sense of finality. I do know this was a last minute renewal for them to keep the show going. But for me personally, I think as a one-off story, for what it is, I don't think it's kind of in that weird point where like it's not a finished story. It definitely is one of those like the story will continue in your imaginations, or you can go watch the original TV show to kind of get what the semblance of Perry Mason is. But I will say the characters they created were all engaging enough. It was interesting enough to warrant more stories to be told in this side of the universe. And I feel like for me, again, I'm always a character's first type of dude. The story could suck ass. The story could like fall apart within the middle. But if the characters have purpose, they have direction, and they have growth, I think that triumphs them all. And I think, especially with Perry, with Drake, Strickland, all those characters, like you definitely feel it. You don't see it, you feel it. And I think that's the best compliment I can give for the show. That's all I have to say about it. So once more, I'm going to give the show 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed it. This is definitely a show that you should watch over a time period. I don't think it's worth the binge still. I definitely do believe this is a slow burn. Definitely not something you should do week to week. Definitely something you should like try to get out of the way in 1 week. It does definitely have the energy, especially once you get to that second half of the season. And again, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough to buy it on DVD for cheap. Think of that what you will. But I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's the Two from ActionX, reviewing the entire first season of Perry Mason in a spoiler-filled capacity. If you want to know what we're doing normally, What's the Two besides our one-off seasonal reviews. Next time, we will be doing our Rookie Season 3 definitive review, which will be live, I believe, on New Year's Eve. And then we will roll back into our regularly scheduled content in the brand new year. But if you do care about just Perry Mason, we do have our Perry Mason episode reviews that are live also on ActionX if you want to go take them a look. We will be back with a Season 2 review at some point in the future. I don't think it's anytime soon, but like maybe like in the next couple years. Who really knows where life's going to take me next? Who really knows? But again, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Like, favorite, share if you want to. Ring that bell and follow us on social media. But until we see each other again, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.